You are listening to Down Home. Imagine working so hard at something that you are considered the best, but you are never given the opportunity to prove it. This is what happened to Sam Langford. Born March 4th, 1886 in Weymouth Falls, Nova Scotia, he is considered by many boxing pundits to be the best boxer never to be given the chance to become a champion in the United States. Langford was a punishing boxer with well-rounded skills, but this skill in the ring was no match for the racism and bigotry of the day. Recently, Jay and I sat down with personal trainer and actor Garfield Watson, who has portrayed Sam Langford in a CBC production. In this wide-ranging conversation, Garfield talks about a few of the parallels he discovered when researching Sam Langford's life.
Breaking new ground, 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 yeah. On a high plateau, from the one down below to the future of the...
Welcome to Down Home, the Nova Scotian experience by two black men. I'm Derek Wise, and as always, we have Jay Jones.
What's happening?
And our conversation this week is with Garfield Watson. What's up, Garfield?
How you doing, guys?
What's happening?
Good, man. Thanks for joining us today, man.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Now, you played Sam Langford in a recent CBC production. What was that experience like, man?
It was very cool. When you play someone, you have to embody who they are and the characters. And I read up a bit about him and who he was, and it was really cool because he was known as one of the greatest unknown boxers out there. And actually, Jay mentioned to me about maybe 8-9 years prior that we worked at the same place. And he's like, "You ever heard of Sam Langford?" I'm like, "Nah, man, I didn't."
Really?
And even when he told me back then, I didn't even research him. Like, he's like, "He was one of the greatest unknown boxers." I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's cool." So when I actually got the part, I researched him, and I'm like, "Man, this guy was no joke, you know." So it was really cool to actually portray a real bona fide great boxer. So the experience was awesome.
Awesome. Now in your research, you must have delved a tiny bit into his life. Did you actually find any type of parallels between his life and yours?
Well, actually, yeah, because his dad was very handsy, if you get what I'm saying.
Right.
One of those dads, like, hit first and talk later kind of a thing like that.
Yeah.
And growing up, my dad was kind of like that too. So I left home when I was really young.
Right.
Because my dad was like too hands-on with me, kind of a thing like that. And, speaking to my dad later on, he told me, how he was raised. And I get it, but still, it doesn't mean that it's right. So
No.
I had to, do what was right for me, which was to leave the home. So he left home too, as well, at a young age. And that's when he basically discovered boxing. How I discovered boxing too at a young age, walking into a gym, and Sam Langford was a janitor at the gym. And the manager there seen him and said, I can do something with this kid. And actually, a boxing legend named Clyde Gray went to the boxing gym in Regent Park.
Right.
My cousin was there, and he was just like, I was at his house. He was a Sherman and Shooter. He's like, "You want to come down with me to the gym?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." Because either I'd sit at home and just chill or hang out on the street while he's boxing. So I went down to the gym with him, and as he was literally training, I just started hitting the bags. And then Clyde Gray came to me and goes, "You got fast hands, kid." And I'm like, yeah, thanks. So we left the gym. A whole bunch of us walking. They're like, "What did he say to you?" I go, "I got fast hands." And they all stopped. They're like, "He's never said it to anyone before." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, cool." And then we just continue walking. But yeah, that's how the parallel. Well, he left home at a young age, and I left home at a young age. And then his trainer seen something to him, and my trainer seen something to me. So it was really kind of cool how it linked up that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sure.
Our imitating life, yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
man. Yeah, there was a point in my own life where I had to choose between boxing and football when I was a young man. And my mother made that choice for me, but anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I the one thing that attracted me to boxing because oh shoot, Jay, what was the name? Citadel Boxing in
Citadel Boxing
Halifax, right?
Club. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Citadel
yeah.
Boxing Club. So I used to walk by there all the time, and I remember oh my god, I wish I remember the head coach, man.
Oh,
Do you remember his name,
damn.
Jay?
No,
I forget his name, but he used to train a lot of Olympic boxers, and he
Mhm.
saw me walking by. He said, "Young man, come in." And I remember I used to go down there every afternoon and train a little bit. And like the style of training is very unique. It's different than any other sport, right?
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about what it takes to get into that kind of state of mind to train for boxing and to train at a level? Because I understand you actually entered a boxing tournament later on in life and won it too. So what
Yeah, I
does it
did.
take? What does it take to get into that mindset?
It takes discipline,
Mm,
and you got to be fearless.
right,
And you can't ever go into boxing believing that anybody can beat you.
right.
If you get what I'm saying, because then you
Yeah.
will be lost, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean you're overconfident. It means that you have to believe in your ability that whatever opponent you're going to face, you can beat them.
mm,
But the first thing is first, you got to train for it. Because I remember one time when I started to go back into it, we're sparring, and this guy that was sparring me, he was like 175, but he used to be like the amateur lightweight champion. So we're sparring, all of a sudden, boom, he hits me with an uppercut, and my leg just went.
yeah.
And I'm like, what was that? And I'm telling you, it's like my ego jumped out of my body and goes, run, man, run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that hit me hard. So I was like, you know what? I have to train so hard because the guys who are going to be hitting me are going to be a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And your legs are your foundation, right? Because that's
Mhm.
the first thing to go. So, I mean, I trained, and my mindset is that if you're going to beat me, it's not because I'm not going to be prepared,
Yeah.
right?
yeah,
It's because that day you're just a better man than me, which I can deal with. But if I go in unprepared, then it's my fault. So my mindset is I got to prepare myself to the limit and go beyond. So if it's sparring for 10 rounds, I'm sparring for 15. If we got to run 10K, I'm running 20K. I want to be over prepared for it. So
Yeah.
discipline, and you have to be courageous, fearless, but then you just have to put that work in and believe that, you know what, no matter what happens, that you were prepared at that time to beat this person or to fight, you know?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting combination, man.
Totally. It's it's a crazy sport too. So you got to be ready. And that's just like anything in life, man. You got to be, life is going to come hit you, right?
Mm.
But
Mm.
can you take the beating and get back on up that, when you get knocked down in the 8th round,
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah. Now, so what was it like for you growing up as a young black man in Canada?
It was like, honestly, it was crazy because I grew up in Toronto first, and then my mom was like, "We need a bigger house. We need a bigger house." So like Lansdowne in St. Clair first, and then we went to Scarborough. Which Scarborough was cool, and then where we were in Scarborough, there was like low income homes at the time, and then across the street, legit was like big homes, right?
Right.
And we all went to the same school.
Yeah.
And that time was pretty cool, right? But then my mom decided she wanted a bigger house and go to Markham. And legit, when I got to Markham, there was cows across the street from us. Like, that's how crazy it was, bro. Cows. I'm like, Mom, where'd you bring us, man? And I'm like, this is not good. And legit, there was cows out there. And then where we were, literally across the street, we'd be able to go to like Milliken and Bayview, which were like black people there. But because we were just across the street, we had to go to Markham High. There was only like 7 black people there.
Oh, yeah.
So you can only imagine what was happening back then, right?
Yeah.
Like it was really, really bad. And as the black guys, we stuck together and we fought
Yeah.
a lot, like
Right.
a lot.
So what was it like? I mean, obviously the other kids were coming at you with, racial slurs and different things like that.
Oh, for sure. You heard
Yeah,
the
yeah.
N-bomb, but then we're like, yeah, this is what this nigga gonna do. Pop, 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 and then we just fight, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't all of them. It was really some cool, but the ones that weren't were like very ignorant. And back then too, I don't know what the parents were feeding them, but there were some big farm boys back then, like 250, 300 pounds. There's some big boys back then.
Yeah.
And I was like $140 wet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you hit this guy, you'd hope you take time to run.
Yeah.
But then it was just the conflict that was there because too, some of the teachers were right into it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some of the teachers were like, yeah, it's okay. But then you had some of the teachers were totally cool, totally great. But the ones that weren't, you just know they weren't. And then it just made life there sometimes to live in hell. Right? We had one of the vice principals that he used to be a former cop. And he wasn't cool. Like he would just chase us around and, what are you doing outside? And it was just like harassment at times. And it wasn't fun. But then the flip side, it was the ones that were cool, we had a good time with, and it was fun in that time, but it wasn't really, it wasn't a happy medium there. It was either left or right.
Nothing in between. Oh,
Nothing
yeah.
No. And some of the cops, they were bad too. Like they were really bad, right? I guess it's Markham, legit. Like I said, there's like 7 of us in one school, a school of like 1,000. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah, and always having a target on your back, Jeez.
For sure.
That's crazy.
For sure.
So do you think that, and it's almost like it's, being at home, you were kind of reliving that kind of cycle of abuse, but this time racial. Did that lead to you sort of maybe getting more of an interest in boxing or sports? Was that a way to escape? What made you get into all that?
It was really, really crazy because, when I was at home and whatnot, it was more of a fear of my parents, you know what I'm saying? And then school, it was fear of my parents. I mean, for parents, true, because you come home and like, you got suspended, and then they want to kill you, right? And then, fear of the teachers and some of the students there. But then I got into boxing to basically defend myself, right? And to be like, okay, y'all want to fight? Let's roll, kind of a thing like that. But I realized the more I boxed, the less fighting I did.
Yeah.
So I had this confidence where I didn't need to prove myself.
Right.
And I didn't need to be like, yeah, you want to roll it? Let's go. It was kind of like, just leave me alone. You do your thing. I can do my thing. And I honestly got into less fights because I had nothing to prove because I knew that who I was. And it was really one of the weirdest thing was that like my dad had this silverback gorilla mentality. Don't look into my eyes, kind of a thing like that.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, especially because adult men, I didn't want to look into their eyes. You know what I'm saying? And it was a fear. But when I started boxing, I was able to keep my head up more, kind of a thing like that, and was able to look eye to eye and be like, I'm a man too, kind of a thing like that. So it really helped me become a man, and to drop the fear of what are people going to say, what my dad going to say, what other people going to say too as well. So it was really good for me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's really cool because sports is that way. Like, I mean, we grew up playing basketball and stuff like that. And, I didn't box, but it was always a good place to put something, you know what I mean? And you do kind of from playing it all the time or whatever, it always gave you that discipline and that time and that mind state to be able to put things in different compartments and, use whatever, something that you might be going through. If you're getting harassed or, physically abused, you could put it into that and learn from your own self, that's the way I always look at sports.
Yeah, definitely. It's I have to agree with Garfield, man. Like it, you whether it's a team sport, individual sport, if you're in there, you're training, it kind of like, gee, I'm kind of good at this. It kind of brings you a certain ingrown, like confidence. Right.
Yeah.
And you're able to hold your head up high, whether you're walking down the halls of your high school or walking the street, you've got that ingrained confidence. Definitely. Yeah. Garfield, anything else you want to add before we wrap up, man?
Actually, it was I was reading up on Sam Langford, and this guy went through a lot.
Yeah.
And in the era that he was in, it was hard for him, and you got to think too, like he was a 5'7" man, fighting guys that were 6'2". Right? He had long arms, right? Someone is actually 6'2", a body of someone 6'2". That's the long of the reach he had. But he started 135 pounds. He was fighting guys who were 40 pounds bigger than him. And I looked at his life and I'm like, what discipline and perseverance this man had. That no matter how big the competition was, he was ready to stand up and say, let's do this. And it goes with life. You know what I'm saying? No matter how big the obstacle seems to be in your life, you got to stand up and say, like, I can do this, and I got to fight this, because the other alternative is you give up and you die. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
So you have to have hope to believe that no matter what obstacles are going to come your way, that you have the ability to get through it and not allow it to conquer you. You know what I'm saying?
So true. It's like now as you get older, you always have to fight, but now as you're older, you keep up that good fight rather than, I know for me, when I was younger, I was a little bit angry. I had a period of severe anger issues, and, probably in my late teens to early 20s. And, I really found it hard to keep my anger under control. It came out in a lot of different ways, mainly picking fights. And luckily, I not a lot of people would know me as that Jay Jones, that's for sure. But Derek knows some of it. But, as you get older, you just want to do it in a different way to fight in the best way possible without everything that comes with it. Because if you think about guys like Sam Langford, man, not only, was he good at something, but he couldn't excel at it because he was a black man. And if you make that parallel in today's life, we kind of always have that target on our back, just like you experienced and just like Derek has experienced at some particular time in life. We sort of have to fight the good fight always, So, yeah.
Go ahead, Derek. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Garfield.
One thing that we do have to realize is that because of guys like Sam Langford, they opened up doors for us. You know what I mean? And that we got to take advantage of those doors too, because a lot of the times it's us that's holding ourselves back because of lack of discipline. You know what I'm saying? We got a good idea. We have the ability to, but we don't discipline ourselves enough to actually follow through and be resilient when the doors don't open the way that we want it to open, that we say, you know what, this is still my dream. This is still a goal that I have to push through. And a lot of times we believe that because the door is shut, that we're not supposed to go through. All right. Sometimes you got to knock. How many times you gone to somebody's house and they're there and you knock it and you got to knock 10, 15 times before that person comes and open that door. Right. It doesn't mean that that person on the other side doesn't want to see you or you weren't supposed to go into that house. It just means that you got to keep knocking and be like, boy, I know you in there. Come downstairs and answer the dang door. You know what I'm saying? So go ahead.
I can agree with that, man. It's it kind of rings true. And like often we have to be, in order to have the same opportunities as others, we have to be the best person in the room.
Exactly.
And like you said, that takes discipline though. To be the best person in the room, to get the same opportunities, right? For ourselves, we have to be that. So definitely I agree.
Yeah. Can sometimes be a lot of pressure though, that's for sure.
Yeah, it is. And that's why like a lot of brothers sink. Because it's hard, right? It's hard to look and say, okay, in order for me to be there, I have to put this amount of effort in.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly, Derek. Exactly.
So it's hard to do that, right? And oftentimes I find myself, I'm like, I just don't feel like it today, man. I don't really want to correct that person today, so I'm not going to. Like stuff like that, right? Like it is tough. It is tough.
You kind of gotta let it go. You
do.
All right, Garfield, this has been an awesome conversation, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, man.
Oh, it's been a great conversation, man. Jay Jones, take us out, man.
Yeah, man. It's funny how, life can sometimes imitate art, and, even out of the bad times that we go through in life, something good can come from it, and you can, find yourself within your struggles. And then, through your struggles, you progress. And as long as you sort of keep living that way, that's a good way to live. And from what I know about you, Garfield, you've always lived that way. So it's good to see you still standing and ready for another round. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek. And you guys have yourself a blessed day, bro.
All right, man.
All right, Garfield.
Peace and love.
Peace.
Breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground, breaking new ground.
You have been listening to Down Home. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
In 1917, Langford lost sight in his left eye during a bout. Despite this, he continued to box for another 8 years. Some sports historians believe that he stayed in the ring because it was all that he knew. There are others that believe it was because he needed the money. Although Langford won acclaim with heavyweight titles in Canada, Mexico, England, and Australia, he was never able to reach that height in the United States. This was due to what was called the color barrier in boxing at the time. Similar to George Dixon, another Canadian boxing legend, Sam Langford's retirement was spent in poverty. This is despite fighting in well over 300 professional bouts during his career. But like Dixon, Langford made money for everyone around him, very little of it landing in his own hands. Journalist Al Lumley found Langford in 1944 living in the projects of Harlem, completely blind. After Lumley's article was published, fans of Langford reached out to him, setting up a trust fund that helped pay for eye surgery and provide him with a small amount of money to live off of. Langford would pass away 12 years later in 1956, just after he was recognized in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame.
The song Breaking New Ground from The Breakdown.